Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Gribbons. Today, I'm going to take you through the perch and the frog dissection labs. I'm going to provide you hopefully some procedural tips and show you actually how to do the dissection to get the most out of the dissection and to form or to find all of the structures that you need for your lab assignments, which you'll take with your camera on your phone, and also to prevent you from destroying the tissues and organs that you want to see. In your kits or at the University of Indianapolis, you should be given two large plastic Ziploc bags that have the frog and the perch in them. You'll also get a dissecting tray and a large absorbent pad that was blue in my kit at least. Make sure that you use that pad. It will absorb any of the fluids that come off of the animals or out of the dissecting tray. Please wear eye protection and gloves, and you will note that both the specimens have a peculiar smell. If you want to get rid of that smell or if that smell burns your eyes or your nostrils, you can wash off your specimen. I recommend doing it maybe outside if you're at home or in a lab sink if you're at the University of Indianapolis. If you do use a sink inside your dorm or at your house, please clean the sink with a bleach cleaner afterwards. That'll get rid of any smell or odor that's left. Make sure you dispose of these organisms back in the bags using the absorbent materials. And remember to use the dissecting tools that were provided for you in your kit. You will not need a scalpel, as you will see when I walk you through the procedures. So let's check out those kits.
Okay, guys, so in front of me here, you can see that we have a packaged perch here, right? And we have a frog. This is how they come. They come in a big Ziploc bag, right? And within that Ziploc bag, you also get this, which is your dissecting tray, an extra bag to put your animal in to throw away, right? So we'll set these aside. And then a large pad for absorbing any excess fluids, right? Notice also that I have some eyeglasses, which I'm going to put on, and some gloves, right? So I have some gloves here that I will use. Okay, so make sure that you have the proper protection here. Just, the CaroSafe is a relatively non-dangerous solution, but let's treat everything like it's a biohazard. So put some gloves on, right? And also use this pad as kind of as a way to absorb any excess fluids. So notice also over here that you get tools in your dissection kit, right? So we get some tweezers, we get some dissecting pins. I think you either get a probe that looks like this or a wooden probe, a set of scissors, and then a scalpel. Notice I've removed the scalpel. You don't need the scalpel at all for the dissection. I don't like using a scalpel except in really, really specific places within any dissection. So for our dissection today, we're not going to be exploring muscles as much, so we won't really need the scalpel. Okay, the scalpel, you can cut yourself really easily. You can also cut structures really easily. It's much easier to use just the scissors. Really, scissors, fingers, and the probe will be your best tools. All right, so let's get started here. We can get started with the perch first. All right, so here is the perch. So make sure you use some sharp scissors to get started here. You want to go through and ID all of the structures. So your fins, your dorsal fins, notice, are going to be down, right? So you're going to have to pull them up to look at them. You got the caudal fin, you got the anal fin, and then these are the pelvic fins down here. And then you have a couple openings here, right? So there is no cloaca in most bony fish. Most of these bony fish that belong to teleostomi, you actually have an anus and a sperm duct and also a urinary aperture that gets rid of urine, sperm, and fecal matter. All right, this probably is a female based on the size of her stomach. It's hard to tell until you get inside. And it's going to ask you to work with the operculum. This is the operculum right here. I'm lifting it up. As you can see, that's where the gills are. They're underneath. So you can see the gills underneath there that are found under the operculum. So the operculum can move up and down to ventilate the gills. The heart is going to be located right under here, right down in this area here. And so when we make our cuts, you can basically, really do it in two different ways. For us, we're not really interested in really preserving the anus and whatnot. You could go up into there and cut basically all the way around here up to the operculum and across, and then I would go all the way down and then across this way. And then you can remove that skin and muscle wall. Probably the best way to do it is, if you want to see the body wall, is to kind of lift our operculum. So if you lift the operculum up, you can actually see, I'm just putting a little tension on it, right? You can actually see the gills here. So here are the gills. These are the gill arches. So these feathery things are the filaments. The actual gill arch is back on the back. And you can actually, if I lift here, see gill rakers are up here, right? These are the gill rakers. So the rakers are up here. The filaments are back here. Now what you're going to want to do is, the skin is relatively thick. So you want to get up underneath this and start a cut across. Now my scissor points, notice I'm pushing my scissor points up, right? If I keep my scissor points up as I go along, then I'll damage less of the tissue I'm interested in, okay? So the skin is relatively thick, as you will see, compared to the frog. I like to hold the fish when I do this, and I just kind of hold it over the top of the dissecting tray to catch any of these what are called ctenoid scales that I'm trying to remove. You can also cut off the pelvic fin here. You're not going to really, I'm sorry, the pectoral fin. You're not going to really need it. And you can see I've come all the way up now. Then you can place your fish back on the dissecting tray. And then hopefully, if you use your tweezers, you can remove the skin, okay? Now the skin is pretty toughly adhered, so if you can get a little spot started with the skin like this, you can usually start to remove it. Now the biggest problem with the fish is a lot of them are pretty dry, right? But once you get the skin going, as you can see here, you can usually, by pulling on it at the base, remove it with your hands to actually see the muscle. So you can see some of the muscle came off there on the skin itself, but you can see the skin is pretty thick. It's pretty neat. You can see these scales come up. All right, these scales are dermal scales. So that's actually the dermis. There's a very thin epidermis over the top of them. These are called ctenoid scales. And if you look at them, if you have your little magnifying glass that came with your kit, if you look at those under your magnifying glass, you'll see little circles within each scale that are called circuli. And these are how they're laid down by the connective tissue cells that produce them. So that's the skin. So it's not too hard to do, but that shows you the myomeres. If you're looking at my probe, these are the individual myomeres that actually move the body wall. So these myomeres allow the fish to swim using the caudal tail. They also have muscles associated with the base of each fin that do allow them to raise their fins. You can see the rays here. You can touch them and understand why they're called actinopterygians, because of their rays, right? So that's how you get to see the myomeres. Now, the easiest way to actually see the organs is, again, keeping that scissor tip up, right? You can go in through the anus and make a cut up like this through the body wall, keeping the scissors up. And really what you're going to do is just make a window, right? Watch the spines. I just spined myself. Come down like this. and then go simply across like that. And then you should be able to peel away most of the body wall here. Now, as you get up here, the swim bladder is actually attached to part of the body wall there. And so, usually it's hard to keep it completely intact because it's attached. So you can see I'm kind of just cutting it off of the visceral side of the muscle wall. And the reason this is so hard to get off is because there's ribs there, right? So I'm got to cut through those ribs, as you can see, and you can hear me cutting through them, right? And that'll open up your organ here, right? Your organs, you can see them, okay? Now notice that some of my ovaries stuck, right? So you can see here, this is the first picture you probably want to take. This is the ovary here that's stuck to part of my body wall, right? And then you can start to see the organs here. So here's the liver. These are muscles that are associated with the operculum. So we can take that triangular piece of muscle out. Okay, so we have the liver. We have these little structures here that are called the pyloric or gastric ceci. There are two of those that come off of the stomach. Once you get your photograph, once you take this photograph, then you can really remove the ovaries, all right? If you don't have this brownish structure here like I do, you'll have two white structures, which are testes. That's how you know you have testes versus ovaries. There's only one ovary in the female, which all of those little circles that you see are actually individual developing oocytes. These fish can produce tens of thousands of eggs, and so they're very prolific as far as the number of eggs they produce. Perch spawn, they're oviparous, they release their eggs into the external environment with the male fertilizing them as they come out, and then the fry can hide in the vegetation and grow through that fry stage until they reach maturity, and then they can grow into adults and then reproduce again. So once you go inside, then you can start to recognize the organs that you have here. So this is the swim bladder back here that's clear. This is the liver here, as you can see real nicely. And then we remove some of the other materials here. This is the intestine down here, after we got the ovary out. This is the spleen. This is the stomach. And this, again, are both one and two flaps here. These are the gastric ceci, which increase surface area in the stomach if they eat a big meal. This is part of the stomach that then comes down over here and then merges into the intestines if you were to take it out. Okay, that's all swim bladder up there, okay? And then within the operculum here, you can see we have gills, right? Or the liver there. So the heart is going to be located in here. So I just made a simple cut, keeping my scissors up and pull up in order to see the heart here. So if you continue to kind of pull up here, and as I go cephalically or towards the head, you can start to see here the ventricle, the atrium is the brownish tissue here. So it's the atrium. This is the ventricle. This structure here that goes up into the gills is called the bulbous arteriosus, all right? And it goes up into the gills. And basically what happens is blood from the body comes into the atrium, pumps into the ventricle. The ventricle then contracts and pushes the blood into the bulbous, up into the gills where it picks up oxygen. And then the blood vessels that go away from the gills become the aorta and are going to deliver oxygenated blood to all of the organs that we just talked about. And then the blood comes back through veins to the atrium again and to the ventricle and then back to the bulbous and then back to the gills again, which are here. So those are the organs and kind of hopefully helpful hints on how to get to the organs to get your pictures. Okay, once you're done with your dissection, then what you guys can do is simply, take your utensils, your dissecting utensils, get them out of the way, keep everything in the tray, and then you just simply wrap this guy up in the absorption paper, and then you can, and what I would do is put him back in the big container that he came in, right? And it makes cleanup relatively easy also. So as you can see there, get all the air out, and you're set. And this can go in the trash. Okay, so make sure you go through and you do all of your external structures first for your frog. So you can see these guys have webbed feet, right? So you get your eyes, nostril, tympanic membrane, okay? Really, the dissection here is pretty simple. You can use your tweezers, but really all you need to do is just pick the skin up with your hands and start your cut. Their skin is a lot easier to get through, so just hold it up. So you can see. You can make a big flap, right? Really simply. And the skin, again, will just rip. It'll tear on its own. There's very little fat under a frog's skin, like in a mammal or a fish. There are several fishes that have lots of fat under their skin. Frogs do not, as you can see as we open up the skin. And what you can do if you want is go ahead and remove the skin. All right, get it out of the way. Scissors that they send in the kits are not too sharp, to be honest with you, but they work. So I gotta get the skin out of the way. I just like to get things out of my way so I can see better, right? The one thing you'll notice is that if you look here under the skin, you look right here, there are actually blood vessels in the skin. One thing that amphibians do that other tetrapods don't do as well is breathe through their skin. So you can see there's lots of blood vessels that invade the skin that provide blood supply to the skin. And so here in this image, now that I removed the skin, you can see this is the rectus abdominis. Guy's got a nice 6-pack, right? Or 8-pack actually here. And again, what you can do is just use your fingers and pick up the abdominal wall and start a hole, right? Once you get the hole, again, I'm keeping my scissors up. I can cut right along a mid-sagittal section here along the linea alba, okay? And then you're going to get underneath bone here, right, that are basically of the pectoral girdles, and you're going to cut through that, okay? And then you can already start to see the organs. If you lift up one of the flaps and you see this little ligament right here, this is called the falciform ligament. Something you don't need to know, but it attaches the liver to the body wall. You can cut through that, all right? And you can see there's some fascia here that will hold the abdominal cavity. If you grab those ends of those bones and simply open up the animal, you'll be able to open up and see all of the organs, all right? If you want, you can use your 2 pins to kind of pin back the wall into the styrofoam like that if they'll stay. Now, they probably won't stay unless you really go at an angle like that. If you go at an angle into the styrofoam, they'll hold better for you. Okay, so there opens up all of the body cavity, or what we call the coelom of our amphibian here. And the first thing that you're going to notice with tetrapods immediately is the liver, right? So they have a huge liver. You can see there are going to be 3 major lobes to the liver here. And under all 3 lobes, right here, is the gallbladder, as you can see. All right, so the gallbladder holds bile. So lifting up the liver, you're going to see, in my particular frog here, a couple of different structures that all kind of look kind of similar in many cases. So what I've got my fingers on, my hands on now, are the intestines. There are these really big finger-like projections, as you can see coming off here, which are called fat bodies. This is where they store all of their fat. So you can see there's a nice one there, and then there's a nice one on this side also, as you can see, right? Big, huge fat body. So this particular individual was probably caught during late summer after they had eaten a bunch and were storing away a lot of the material that they will use for reproduction in the spring in these fat bodies. Okay, so you see I get the fat bodies kind of out of the way there. Now, your lab handout tells you have to remove organs. In reality, you don't really have to remove the organs too much, in my opinion. So you can just move things around. But if you want to, you can. If you open these up really well, like we have done, you can see the heart. Here's the heart up here. This is the ventricle, and these are the atria on either side. We've got a 3-chambered heart compared to the 2-chambered heart. There are lungs on either side here. As you can see, I'm just removing these clear fascia. Here's one lung. And over here's the other lung, okay? Now the lungs look really small. They're really small because they have been aspirated or they've collapsed after death and fixation, right? Using some formalin and then rinsing with this glycerol. Is this glycerated, this care safe solution that they use, the lungs shrivel up. Right? They would actually take up the entire body cavity here if they were, open. So, or if they were alive and filled with air. So again, underneath here, you can see that we have the liver. Now, if you go over to on my right side, as you can see, here's one lung. This is the stomach. Okay. This is the stomach as I've lifted and pushed the stomach down. You can see the stomach goes up into the mouth. This is the stomach that comes down, and then it's constricted here at the pylorus, just like you had 2 pyloric ceca coming off here in the fish, right? This structure right here is the pancreas. So you can see it's kind of a little glandular structure. Depending on the size of your frog, sometimes it's hard to see. This is a blood vessel, but this structure right here is the pancreas. The pancreas in all tetrapods is found right next to the duodenum and the junction of the stomach. So the first part of the small intestine, which is right here, as you can see, if I lift up my stomach and hold this, stomach on my right, pancreas, right? The major lobule of the pancreas. And then this here is the duodenum, the first parts of the small intestine. Now, you can see I've kind of lifted up, got the fat body back, right? Right here's the spleen, okay? And then the rest of this stuff here is intestines, all right? They call it jejunal ileum in amphibians. And you can see if you follow this around that it's going to twist behind and come down and become this intestinal knot. And then it comes down and around and then enters this larger straight tube that is called the colon or the large intestine. So you can see the spleen is, and I've removed the tissue, but usually is attached to the intestine and to the body wall there, as you can see. Now this particular individual is a male, all right? And if you look here, this is the kidneys. So you can see there's this fascia here on the bottom that kind of holds the kidneys in place. So you can see the kidneys are big and flat. There's one on this side. And then if I keep that up here and flip over here, here's the other kidney. Okay, again, there's that fascia, right? So here's the other kidney right here. Now, because this guy's out of season, the testes are really hard to see. And this happens with these males. But if you look right here, the testis is actually coming off of the same ridge as the fat body. So the fat body is these fat cells here that make up the fat body are derived from the germinal ridge, just like the testis is. And this individual is out of season. Its testis is not producing anything. And this is the testis right here. Usually they're a little larger and white if they're in season. It just depends on when they killed the frog or sacrificed the frog. But this is the testis here. And then below that is the seminal vesicle. Right? The seminal vesicle is tightly attached, as you can see here, to the kidney itself. The kidney actually, the top part or the cephalic part of the kidney in most amphibians actually is going to provide the seminal fluid that mixes with the sperm that's produced in the seminal vesicle that will dilute the sperm and allow it to be delivered to the external environment to fertilize eggs. If your testis is bigger, your seminal vesicle will be larger also. But that is where your kidneys are. So you have two testes, right? In this instance here with this guy, the other testis being over here. Right here's the other testis. Oops. Which I removed on accident. But that would be attached to the body wall, right? And you can see how small they are in this instance. And so there's the testis, there's the seminal vesicle, right? And then this is the other kidney. Now, down here, you can see back here is the actual vertebral column, and there's a bunch of nerves and blood vessels that are running off of here. You can see some other blood vessels. And this here, right here, this structure I'm going to pull up, this clear structure is the urinary bladder, this right here, this kind of opaque structure. So this is the urinary bladder, and this right here, this clear structure my pointer's on, is, actually it's down here. It's really hard to see, but there is a ureter right here that drains into that bladder that comes off of the kidney. So you see I'm following the kidney down, and here's the ureter that empties into the urinary bladder. So those are all the organs that you really have to ID. If you do get a female that has eggs, you're going to see huge ovary masses on either side here where the fat body is. And you can remove those ovaries in order to see all of the organs of the female. You'll know you have a female if her abdomen is really large and filled with eggs. And again, these frogs can ovulate tens of thousands of eggs to produce lots of tadpoles in order to make sure that they have a few of them that make it through the tadpole stage and become terrestrial froglets. All right, so that's a little bit of an introduction and hopefully a helpful dissection that will help you with the frog. So notice my frog had a lot more fluid associated with it, so it was an easier dissection. And again, when you're completely finished, you can remove your utensils here and then simply wrap this guy up, right? And throw him away.
Okay, guys, well, that does it from here. I've hopefully helped you out with some procedural tips that'll get you through the dissection. Please remember to save those images, add them to your lab assignments, and also keep them for your studying of the lab practical. Remember, any of those structures that you find and photograph and the structures that the lab handouts want you to identify are fair game on the lab practical. So I hope your dissection is successful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks.